I'm really rich. I'll show you that in a second.
Donald Trump made nearly $1.5 billion from cryptocurrency-related business dealings last year alone.
His wealth before all this crypto stuff almost pales into insignificance. It's like his entire real estate career and everything was just a prelude.
I don't know if I've had a better career in politics or business. So we're all profiting. I'm profiting because I have a lot of money and a lot of cash.
Donald Trump built his image as a successful businessman who knows how to make money. And now we know just how much, thanks to his mandatory financial disclosure. The president earned more than $2 billion last year, coming from everything from cryptocurrency and stock trades to Bibles and perfumes. In the next 10 minutes, we'll bring you the 5 key things you need to know about how President Trump makes his money. Let's start with cryptocurrency, which the president hasn't always been a fan of.
Bitcoin, it just seems like a scam.
And that was Donald Trump in 2021. Now, cryptocurrency is by far his biggest revenue stream. $526 million came from his family's crypto venture, World Liberty Financial, which is run by his sons Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr., and the sons of U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Well, let's bring in our White House reporter, Bernd Busman. Bernd, what do we know about this company?
Well, World Liberty Financial was founded in 2024 by, as you mentioned, several of Donald Trump's sons and several of the sons of Steve Witkoff, his special envoy. Now, that company was formed before he came back to being president, and also it's had its history of controversy. It had a very sizable injection from the UAE last year, and just last week, several Democrats sent a letter saying that they see that there could be some sort of conflict of interest, also in terms of America's national security with such a big Emirati investment in the company. So that company, as you mentioned, is something that the White House says that President Trump isn't involved in the investments day to day, but he has made quite a substantial amount of money, over more than $500 billion.
Well, that's not the only crypto revenue for the president. There was another $635 million in royalties from a licensing deal that was linked to the official Trump meme coin. What's a meme coin, you ask? Here's our North America business correspondent, Michelle Fleury, to explain.
Essentially, it is a type of cryptocurrency, but unlike Bitcoin or Ethereum, it doesn't have a technical use. It is inspired often by internet jokes. I think if you look back to 2013, one of the famous ones was Dogecoin, which featured the dog, the Shiba Inu, on it. Another one, of course, was Pepe, the frog. That was the source of an internet meme. So they derive their purpose or their value, if you like, from community, from hype, from humor, which means they can be very volatile, which is why financial experts warn to approach them with caution, given that they are deriving their value simply from vibes.
Some meme coins have seen massive growth in their value. Trump's meme coin has not. When it launched just days before his inauguration, it was priced at more than $27 a coin. But as you can see, that value has plummeted by 95%. And you can buy one now for just $1.70. Yet it's still making him money. Bernd, from someone who was so anti-crypto, Donald Trump has really embraced it since returning to office, in his policies and in his investments.
He has. Well, I think one important thing there is that there's an important political consideration. Before he returned to the White House in January 2025, there was a perception among many in the cryptocurrency community that the Biden administration and Democrats, particularly people such as Elizabeth Warren, were anti-cryptocurrency. And, President Trump and the then Republican campaign really saw many of these cryptocurrency enthusiasts, many of whom are young men, as up for grabs. And they also saw a kind of overlap between some of the other groups that they saw as potentially being ones that would vote for Donald Trump in the election, young men in particular. So I think that in particular led him to make kind of a U-turn on cryptocurrency. And of course, I think it should be said, there was also very substantial donations from the cryptocurrency community and from companies and businessmen involved in cryptocurrency to the Trump campaign before he came into office. And people I've spoken to have suggested that that helped influence Trump's thinking on cryptocurrency from where he went to someone who didn't see any utility into it or any kind of business value to cryptocurrencies into someone who very much sees cryptocurrencies as a key part of his campaign's business kind of administration. And the White House very often and very loudly considers itself and calls itself the cryptocurrency White House, that are making cryptocurrency America the cryptocurrency of the world. So I think those factors in particular helped him kind of change his rationale in terms of cryptocurrencies over the years.
Next, let's turn to trading. The stock markets were extremely volatile in 2025, with much of the movement tied to the policies of the Trump administration. Think tariff wars, real wars, huge investments in AI, and this new financial disclosure reveals Donald Trump was making a lot of trades, far more than the administration had revealed. Take a look at this. These are all the weekly trades we knew about, just over 800 in total made in the president's name. Critics were already concerned about that being too many. But this is what we know now. More than 21,000 trades were actually made in his name. That's about 80 a day and almost 24 times more trades than we knew about. So what stocks is he trading in? Here's Michelle Fleury again.
It's concentrated around names in technology, names you'll be familiar with, like Microsoft, Meta, Apple, Intel, Google. All of these names, with the biggest purchase coming on August 18th, and that was for NVIDIA, a purchase of between 5 and 25 million. We know the range, not the specific number, because that is what the disclosure form reveals, and which is, I got to say, pretty typical for these types of forms.
Bernd, what's been the reaction to this huge number of trades by or on behalf of the president?
Well, like many things in America, I think the reaction is different based on how a particular person or a particular group of people feel about President Trump. Detractors of President Trump say that there is a clear conflict of interest. Many companies that are doing well on the stock market have benefited from President Trump's policies since he returned to office. On the other hand, the White House and many Republicans would take the opposite view. They think, as President Trump said just this morning, that the stock market is doing much better, and as such, all Americans are benefiting, including President Trump and his family. So it's one of those things in the United States that's it's very politicized, and you'll get a very different answer based on who you're asking.
Well, before he first ran for president in 2016, Donald Trump earned his wealth in the family business, real estate, and it's still a big moneymaker for him. His name adorns hotels, resorts and golf courses around the world, bringing in revenue to the tune of around $300 million in 2025. Here's Michelle on which properties made him the most money.
No surprise, a chunk of his fortune comes from some of his properties. Mar-a-Lago, his famous estate in Florida, generated about $77 million. But he also made a good chunk of change overseas. For example, from his 2 Scottish golf courses, he made around $40 million or 30 million pounds. Still, none of that compares to the sheer scale of money that he was making from cryptocurrency bets.
Next on the list, merch. Trump's name is a brand, and you can purchase almost anything you want with his face or name on it. If you can buy it, you can buy a Trump version of it. Watches, guitars, digital trading cards, the list goes on and on. The products have brought him in millions in royalties and sales revenue. Well, Bernd, it seems like Trump's name is on everything. Can you really buy a Trump Bible?
You can buy a Trump Bible. That's a partnership he's done with the musician Lee Greenwood. Many people will know Lee Greenwood's song Proud to Be an American, which has kind of become kind of the soundtrack first of the Trump campaign, and almost universally at Trump events, Trump rallies, Lee Greenwood, his music plays there, and he just performed in Washington very recently. So those two men are very much linked, and they've come together for this kind of branded Bible that President Trump hopes people will be interested in, and that the White House hopes will kind of endear him to Americans who are religious and feel strongly about religion being a part of their lives and their government.
And finally, there are the more obscure earnings. Trump received more than $86 million in settlements from lawsuits in 2025 from ABC, CBS, Meta and YouTube. Though the White House says all that money will be directed towards Trump's future presidential library and the upkeep of parks in the D.C. area. And then there are the gifts. One lesson business and world leaders took from Donald Trump's first term was that he responds well to being given presents.
Mr. President, this is your prize. This is your Peace Prize. There is also a beautiful medal for you that you can wear everywhere you want to go.
This is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special.
Bernd, the president racked up more than $350,000 in gifts this last year. What type of things was he given?
Well, the biggest chunk of those gifts was tickets to sporting events. We just heard from Mr. Infantino. There was tickets to the FIFA World Cup, for example. UFC President Dana White gave him gifts of UFC tickets. There's been tickets to basketball games, to hockey games, to baseball games. That's kind of the biggest chunk. But I think the one gift that really stands out to a lot of people is a $250,000 gold statue given to him by a businessman depicting kind of the moment he came off the stage in Butler, Pennsylvania following the assassination attempt. It's a very large statue of what has become kind of an iconic for Trump supporters image of him holding his fist in the air shortly after he was shot in the ear in Butler. And that's now adorning one of his properties down in Florida. And that was $250,000. And that's kind of the other big standout gift he received besides many, many, many sporting tickets.
So, gifts, crypto, trade deals. One more question to you, Bernd. Many people are asking this question. Is this all ethical?
Well, the White House will point to the fact that this was all disclosed as is legally required by law, and that President Trump doesn't actually have any day-to-day intervention in his money. This is all handled by a blind trust, and the White House doesn't see any reason why this should be considered off-board. Of course, President Trump's detractors will point to all this and say there's an enormous conflict of interest when companies in which he or his family stand to benefit from, for example, friendly policies towards cryptocurrency. But the White House has really brushed all of that aside and said that people are really making a big deal out of what is, in their minds, nothing at all.
Okay, Bernd Bussmann, thank you very much. And that's all you need to know about how Donald Trump makes his money.